Yeah.
Did you start your podcast because of who you work for, or did you start the podcast first and then because you work for a podcasting company, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me explain. No, I started podcasting. So I had another podcast before this podcast with the same name, like Mary's
Okay.
World Podcast. This one is the Mary's World Podcast because I had to change it. So I started that podcast mainly because I had finished my bachelor's and I didn't have a job. Like I couldn't find a
Okay.
job. And I was still applying for masters and all of that. So I was like, what can I do with my free time? I've always wanted to have my own show.
Okay.
Like I've always wanted to be like the host of a TV show or something like that. But I quickly noticed that there was no space for me in the TV like media space.
At that time, you were living in Lisbon or still in Saint Tome?
Oh yeah, Lisbon. I've moved from São Tomé since I was 2 years old, so I've grew up
Okay.
in Lisbon like my
Okay.
whole
Okay.
life. So I quickly realized that there was I could have applied to certain jobs in TV in Portugal, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to have my show until I had like a long ass career, right?
Be a presenter, etc., etc.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? F all of that. I'm just gonna create my own stuff. So what I did was
Entrepreneur.
yeah, I just started my podcast and I recorded it with my phone, which still,
Give me a second.
yeah.
How did you know about podcasting, and how long was this?
So this was about 3 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, so 3 years ago, you already. Oh yeah, I mean, there was the explosion of podcasting at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of knew because I've always been interested in doing radio, and I kind
Okay.
of wanted to do radio in Lisbon. I was very good at it, like in my bachelor's assignments and all that. But then again, I never saw people that looked like me, especially women that looked like me, doing radio. The only one I did saw was Yolanda Tati, and she started with a career on YouTube. And
Okay.
at that time, I had already released my music video, and that was blowing up. I had like 200K views. So I was like, well,
So you started as a singer,
yeah,
then you went into. So I'm asking my
podcast.
questions wrong. I should ask you more about the singing first. I'll come
Yeah.
back to this. It's no problem. It's
Okay.
so you were looking into having your own show, and why go radio or podcast more than YouTube?
Because I felt like podcasting was way more honest, and I didn't have a lot of work. YouTube, I
What you
still
mean
had to
honest?
like with podcasting, you can just, I feel like it's more of a safe space. Number one, you don't really have the comments of people. Now you do. Now you have comments on Spotify, but that's
Yeah?
pretty much, yeah. You have comments there,
For
and
real?
yeah, and on Spreaker, which is where I work,
Wait
the
a
app you
minute.
can leave comments there, and you also have
So if I go
polls.
to Joe
People
Rogan,
vote. Yeah,
so
people
I
can
go to
like
an episode, I don't have comments.
But I think that you can enable that. Like you can send an email and blah blah blah. I'll show you later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So at that time, there were no comments. The only comments you would get is if you would put that audio on YouTube, and of course, YouTube has a comment section. So people would be like, "Oh, I really like it," or "I hate it." But I always thought that podcasting was way more freeing, less judgmental, and you didn't really have to follow the trends. You can just have your own trend.
But podcast is becoming video now.
Yeah.
Most
now, but
most of my podcasts that I listen to are I actually watch them on YouTube, and
yeah,
I like actually
seeing.
I might listen to them while I'm jogging. I might listen to like 2 hours or an hour of. But once I get home, I pick where I left and I go to YouTube so I can watch them, because I love watching also the expression of the people and etc. etc.
Yeah, but I mean that's a preference.
Yeah,
I
that's me
I
as a
like
as a
watching some podcasts, but some of them I like hearing
list.
because I feel like it's more intimate.
But I'm realizing as well that most radio shows. So I left France 10 years ago, but I still listen more when it comes to politics, geopolitics, and stuff that everything that is tech, podcast, societal stuff in general. I would listen to in English, but everything that has to do with like French politics or commentary about stuff, I would not listen to it in Portuguese because I don't know. It's not something that I'm used to do. But most of the podcasts that I listen in French are more about the news stuff that's still happening in France and stuff. And I've realized that all of these shows now, even if they used to just be radio shows, now they're all added image. Everybody's adding image to everything. Don't you believe that at a point you might jump the and start showing yourself?
No, I'm not doing it. And you know why? Like I, it's like I think you kind of explained it in the beginning. Like when I was doing music and all that, like I had to sell myself, right? So photo shoots, like all of this stuff, blah blah blah, always on. And I kind of got sick of that
Why?
because I just don't feel like being polished all the time and having makeup and having to smile and be polite and nice. So
So you
I just
really
feel like
want
and if I start showing my face, that means I need to, because
makeup?
the internet. So I want to look presentable. And when I filmed my podcast, my previous podcast, I had to do a full on makeup, get my hair done, get the lighting, edit, blah blah. I'm not doing it because
So
first of
are
all,
you
I'm gonna
lazy? Are you lazy,
also.
or you want to be free?
I think both.
Okay.
Because I just, in that time, I use my podcast also as my therapy sessions.
Okay.
Because I'm like, right now, I'm just going to be talking about my life. I don't care what you're going to think of me. I'm just going to read books, and this is what it is. But I think it makes it more special
Yeah.
because people are like, even though I'm not seeing her face, I'm going to listen to her
And I relate.
and I relate.
You know, actually my show, which in a way is a podcast, but it's not made to be a podcast. It's actually about my life as well. Most of the time I start the show by saying what I did today, how was my day, etc., or stuff that happened. Like
Yeah.
last week, my house almost burned. It was like the whole talk of the show. We had an electrical cable that just started burning, and like, lucky for us, we were there.
Yeah.
And then it's my point of view on different subjects and how my point of view is moving, as because this is life first of all, and as the learning something, being emotional, and coming back to the subject a year later, having a complete different opinion, or just a different opinion, or an evolved opinion. And interestingly, I used to, because being an artist, because being photographed and filmed and judged in a way by
Yeah.
strangers all the time, I always cared about my appearance and stuff. And I used to always, when I used to do my first YouTube videos, when I was talking, I had my Inspire series. I would cut all the what, and anything redundant, all these hesitation, and be in a way not fake, but edited,
Yes,
I would say.
scripted. Yeah.
And because of this show, because of having to show up twice a week, sometimes tired, sometimes with allergies, sometimes fresh out of COVID, or sometimes with my daughter at the hospital, cried every day. Like,
Yeah.
it actually made me not only more real, but also more accepting of my own image and my own flaws. That, yeah, I mean, it's me, like, in sometimes I watch episode 1 or episode 10. I watch an old episode, and I just to see where I am in my space, or maybe I remember what was going on in my life at that time, and I'm like, wow, I think the reason why people gravitate to this show, and a lot of people watch this show and they're not in the chat. They just watch, and they say nothing. And sometimes they will send me a message, or I meet them in the club and they're like, yo, your show is amazing. I learned this, I learned that, da 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 da. Oh, listen, oh, you so real. I love the fact that you're so real. I was like, why you never put a comment or something? Nah,
I'm just embarrassed.
And some
Where's
people,
the
like,
word?
some artists tell me they watch every episode.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I was talking to some famous Angolan artists in a party a month ago, and they were like, yo, we watch every episode. We learn so much. I was like, wow. And I guess the fact of being in front of the camera every all week made me a little more, for example, color conscious. I really used to not care. I would have wore the green one with the blue.
Yeah.
And because of seeing myself, I started like, okay, taking care a little more of my bird, not wearing the same shirt, like, because sometimes I would wear a shirt and then the week after I'm wearing the same shirt because you went to the washing machine and it came back. So, but then you can realize, because you are seeing yourself all the time, oh, I wore everything I have. I have to get more stuff, or I have to design more stuff, or I have to go to the store and get me something new to wear.
Yeah.
And like,
No, but because it matters, right? It's still your show. It's your
yeah,
image. Like, it counts.
but in a way, I think it was beneficial to my brand. And I'm not trying to convince you, because I don't think you're a person that is convinced. You seem like, I listen to your show. You seem like one of those fierce feminists. I feel
I'm
like,
not a feminist. No. I like me a gentleman. I pull on my chair, pay my bill. Like, it's a dinner bill, right? Like, no. No, absolutely
I
not. Who said
okay,
that? Who
cool.
invented that? No.
I'm joking with you, but I mean, I believe that because anyway, of the market of podcasts is becoming video. I believe that even just the way you are right now, in your room, in pajamas, I guess, you would probably rock double, because I mean, you know how hard to watch, like these guys saying, most of the time I'll be staring at the left hand side speed of the screen, but nowadays my focus would be on the one on the right. God's creature. Oh my God.
Amen.
Amen.